Hello, good morning to all. Now, in this lecture, we are going to discuss about the anatomical aspect of the pharynx. Okay? Now, what is pharynx first? Let me introduce the pharynx. So, pharynx, you can read, the pharynx is a cone-shaped fibromuscular passageway. It's a cone-shaped fibromuscular passageway that leads from the nasal as well as the oral cavities and going to the esophagus and larynx. Okay? Recalling, pharynx is a cone-shaped fibromuscular passageway leading from nasal and oral cavity and going towards the esophagus and larynx. Now, this, what the introduction I have given about the pharynx, that serves a dual purpose. That gives you about that gives hint about the structure as well as the function. You can observe that I have written it's a fibromuscular passage. So that is hint about the structure. It's a fibromuscular tube. Okay, we will discuss about the structure of the pharynx later on, but you can get right now it's a fibromuscular tube. And second one, I have written that it's a passageway leading from the nasal and oral cavities. So it means that is serving the functional purpose. It means that it's a passageway for the air as well as the food. Okay, so this is about the introductory aspect of the pharynx. Now, let me show the pharynx. Image of the pharynx. Now, this is the schematic presentation of the mid-sagittal section of head and neck. Now, here you can get, this is the nasal cavity. This one, you can see the nasal cavity and oral cavity also. And behind the nasal cavity, this is the part of the pharynx. Behind the oral cavity, this also is the part of pharynx. And here, that leads to lower down. This one is the pharynx. Up to this level, it's a pharynx. So that lies, as far as the situation of the pharynx concerned, you can get, it lies behind the nasal cavity, oral cavity, as well as the behind the larynx. Okay? Now, as far as the extension concerned, vertical extension. Now, this pharynx extends above from the cranial base. Here you can get, it's a cranial base, that is a base of the skull. And downward up to the level of the lower border of the cricoid cartilage. And the vertebral level of this lower border of cricoid cartilage, it's a CE6, 6 cervical vertebrae. So this is the vertical extension that from cranial base to this lower border of the cricoid cartilage. Now, anteriorly, as I've told, this upper part of the pharynx having a communication with the nasal cavity, this middle part having a communication with the oral cavity, and this lower part having a communication with this laryngeal inlet. Posteriorly, this pharynx is related with, you can get it, that is related with the cervical part of the vertebral column. That is up to the level of 6 cervical vertebra. Of course, that is separated from the cervical part of the vertebral column by these prevertebral muscles and the fascia covering these prevertebral muscles, that is prevertebral fascia. So posterior is related with the cervical part of the vertebral column. Now, so what I am going to explain you right now, the basic relations, surrounding relations. Anteriorly, that is communicated with this oral cavity, nasal cavity and the laryngeal cavity. Posteriorly related with this prevertebral part of this prevertebral layer of the cervical fascia. Superiorly, that is a cranial base, and inferiorly, that is continuous with the esophagus at the level of the 6 cervical vertebra. Now, what about laterally? You can't get the lateral relation from this figure because there is a mid-sagittal section. Now, basically, here, this is a complete pharynx. It's a lateral wall of the pharynx. So, what the basic relation of the pharynx over the lateral aspect, that is the large arteries of this neck, large blood vessels, that is a common carotid artery with the terminal branches, the internal and external carotid artery, along with the certain branches of the external carotid artery. Beside this, you can get this internal jugular vein also, only part of the jugular vein is shown, and other large nerves, that is a vagus as well as the cervical part of the sympathetic chain. All these are related with the lateral wall of the pharynx. So this is about the introductory aspect as well as the situation of the pharynx and as well as the certain relations, basic relations of the pharynx. Now let's go further. As far as the measurement concerned, the length of this adult pharynx that roughly 12 to 14 centimeter and width is 3.5 centimeter. Actually uppermost part of the pharynx which is in contact with this cranial base, that is the widest part, having a 3.5 centimeter width, and the lowermost part of the pharynx where the esophagus starts, we can tell it's a pharyngo-esophageal junction. That is reduced, the width of this part is reduced to 1.5 centimeter. Actually, in fact, this pharyngo-esophageal junction is the narrowest part of the alimentary canal. Is the narrowest part of the alimentary canal except that of this vermiform appendix. So this is about the measurement. Now, let's go for these different parts of the pharynx. So basically, for the descriptive purpose, not only for the descriptive but also for the functional purpose, our pharynx is divided into three parts. And what I have written, enumerated this part, there's a nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Now, it will be easy for you people that which part, to understand that which part is the nasopharynx, which part is the oropharynx and which part is the laryngopharynx. Here once again I am showing the same figure. So the part which lies behind the nasal cavity, this part, that is the nasopharynx. Same thing is true for the oropharynx, that the part which lies behind the oral cavity, that is the oropharynx. And this one is the laryngopharynx, the part which lies behind the larynx. So these three are the parts of this pharynx. It's a nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx from above downwards. Now, in next discussion, we will discuss about certain characteristics, certain important points about these three parts. Let's start with the nasal part of the pharynx. Now here you can get, this one is the nasal part of the pharynx. Let's have one more figure. So here, this is the nasal part of the pharynx. You can get behind this nasal cavity. Now anteriorly, it's quite understood that this nasal part of the pharynx is in communication with the nasal cavity. Anteriorly, that is communicated with the nasal cavity. Here I am going to show you the nasal cavity. Here, this is the communication of this pharynx and nasopharynx with the nasal cavity. Here, this is the view from the nasopharynx to this nasal cavity. So here you can get the two posterior nails are there. That is the anterior communication. Now, posteriorly, here you can get not only posteriorly but somewhat postero-inferiorly. Here there is one isthmus is there, or one more communication is there, and this communication is between the nasal part of the pharynx and oral part of the pharynx. That is quite visible. So that is this communication is known as the pharyngeal isthmus. So posteriorly or postero-inferiorly, this nasopharynx is in communication with this pharyngeal isthmus. And the boundary of this pharyngeal isthmus is important because this isthmus is going to close during the deglutition for the prevention of this passage of the bolus into nasal part of the pharynx. So this nasal pharyngeal isthmus or the pharyngeal isthmus is bounded here by this free margin of the soft palate. This one is the soft palate, and with that one ridge is there, that is known as the ridge of Passavant. That is C-shaped ridge, and this C-shaped ridge along with this posterior margin of this soft palate together form one isthmus that is known as the pharyngeal isthmus. So this pharyngeal isthmus is the communication between the nasal part of the pharynx and oral part of the pharynx. Okay. So now let's see about this upper wall as well as the posterior wall. This upper and posterior wall of this nasopharynx having the slope, and that is by and large it's continuous, and that is supported by the cranial base of the skull. And here the bones contributing in this upper and posterior wall of the pharynx is chiefly it's a basiocciput, that is a basal part of the occipital bone, and that is contributed anteriorly by the body of the sphenoid and posteriorly by this anterior arch of the atlas. Here in the roof, one important thing or one important structure, that is a collection of the lymphoids in the roof. And this lymphoid is known as the nasopharyngeal tonsil. So this roof of this nasopharynx, roof along with the posterior wall of the nasopharynx having a collection deep to the mucosa, this collection of this lymphoid tissue is known as the nasopharyngeal tonsil. Now you can see the lateral wall. This one is the lateral wall. Now lateral wall possesses certain important structure. Here one can get one opening is there. This opening is known as the tubal opening. It is known as the tubal opening. Why it's a tubal opening? Because that is the opening of the eustachian tube. It's a pharyngeal opening of the eustachian tube. That's why it's known as the tubal opening. Now, this tubal opening is surrounded by certain elevations. They are known as the tubal elevation. Now, from this tubal elevation, posterior aspect of the tubal elevation, one can get that one fold passes or descends. One fold descends. This fold is known as the salpingopharyngeal fold. It is known as the salpingopharyngeal fold, and this fold is because of the underlying muscle of the same name, that is the salpingopharyngeus muscle. Okay. So, now, posterior to this fold, a recess is there. Recess with having a variable depth is there, that is known as the pharyngeal recess. So these are certain important point or the important part of this lateral wall of the nasopharynx, that is a tubal opening, then tubal elevation, salpingopharyngeal fold, or pharyngeal recess. Now let's proceed to this oropharynx. So we have discussed about these certain important points associated with this nasopharynx. Now come to the oropharynx. Now here in this figure only you can get about the location of the oropharynx. This one is the oropharynx, and this arrow is within the pharyngeal isthmus what we have discussed. Now this oropharynx that lies behind the oral cavity. What the basic location of the oropharynx is behind the oral cavity. Now anteriorly this oropharynx is in communication with the oral cavity, and here the oropharyngeal isthmus is there. Remember, it's a different isthmus. That was the pharyngeal isthmus, or known as the nasopharyngeal isthmus, separating the oropharynx with the nasopharynx. Now this one, what I am telling you right now, that is the oropharyngeal isthmus that is located somewhat here, and that is going to demarcate the oral cavity as well as the oral cavity and oropharynx. Now here, one more figure. So here is the location of the oral cavity, and this one is the oropharynx. Now here in the lateral wall of the oropharynx, one can get, it's a tonsillar fossa is there. That possesses the palatine tonsil. And behind this tonsillar fossa, one fold that is known as the palatopharyngeal fold. Palatopharyngeal fold that descends in the lateral wall of the pharynx. And this palatopharyngeal fold is because of the underlying muscle of the same name, that is a palatopharyngeal muscles. Now, so this is sufficient about this oral part of the pharynx. Now let's proceed further for the laryngeal part of the pharynx. Now here, the basic level of the laryngeal part of the pharynx starts at the upper border of thyroid cartilage. Here this one is the thyroid cartilage, and this part is the laryngeal part of the pharynx. basically that lies posterior to this larynx. Now, this is the sagittal section. So one can see the laryngeal part of the pharynx from the lateral aspect. So here anyone can observe that initially this part that is communicated with the laryngeal cavity, so with the laryngeal inlet, and posteriorly that is related with this cervical column, the cervical part of the vertebral column. Now this is the sagittal view. Now what is the posterior view? Now the view is changed. We are looking anterior. We are within the laryngopharynx and we are seeing the larynx here. So here this is the laryngeal inlet. This is the upper border of the epiglottis. So from this level the laryngopharynx starts downward. So what I am going to explain you the anterior wall of the laryngopharynx. So anteriorly you can get that it is bounded by the laryngeal inlet above. Below that is bounded by the certain cartilages of the larynx, that is the arytenoid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. Here this is the location where the arytenoid and cricoid cartilage is there. So basically in the upper part it's a laryngeal inlet and in the lower part arytenoid and cricoid cartilages are there. But the rather more important thing is the anterolateral aspect. See here on the side of the larynx one can see the fossa is there. And this one is the important part of the laryngopharynx. It's a small fossa on the side of the laryngeal inlet. And this fossa is known as the pyriform fossa. And this pyriform fossa having a clinical importance because this is a small extension of the laryngopharynx where the foreign body can get lodged. And here in the wall of the pyriform fossa, internal laryngeal nerve is there. Just deep to the mucosa, internal laryngeal nerve is there. So what happened? Sometimes the instrument that is passed to remove that foreign body, that can damage that internal laryngeal nerve. This is very important. With the consequent hemianesthesia of the supraglottic part of the larynx. Recalling, when the internal laryngeal nerve gets damaged, that can lead to the hemianesthesia to the supraglottic part of the laryngeal mucosa. Why it's hemi? Because if the one side of the internal laryngeal nerve gets damaged, that will lead to the anesthesia of that particular side. So it's a hemi-anesthesia, and this internal laryngeal nerve that is going to provide a sensory innervation to the supraglottic part. So consequent hemi-anesthesia of the supraglottic part of this larynx. Second important point about this pyriform fossa, that is also known as the smuggler fossa, because this is the site where the smugglers use to hide the smuggling materials. So this is about the laryngopharynx. So till now what we have discussed, let's have a quick recap. I have introduced first the pharynx as a fibromuscular tube. Then I have explained you about the location of this pharynx, that is behind this nasal cavity, oral cavity and larynx. Then I have explained about the basic relations, surrounding relations, then different parts of the pharynx, that is a nasopharynx. What is the important point for the description in the nasopharynx, in the oropharynx and in the laryngopharynx. Now let's proceed further, that is the structure of the pharynx. Now here we will discuss what is the structure in the wall of the pharynx. See, basically I have three coats are there, three layers are there in the pharynx. The innermost layer, that is a mucosal layer, that is known as the mucous coat. Just outside the mucosal layer, one fibrous coat is there, that is made up of the fibrous tissue, that is known as the pharyngobasilar fascia. And the outermost is the muscular coat, that is made up of these muscles. Number of muscles are contributing in this muscular coat. Now this mucosal coat, no further description about this mucosal coat, that this mucosal coat, the epithelium of this mucosa that is continuous with that of this nasal cavity, with that of the oral cavity, with that of the laryngeal cavity, with that of this auditory tube. Now this fibrous coat. Now fibrous coat is just deep to this mucous coat. It's an intermediate coat. Now this fibrous coat, basically it's a thin layer between the mucous coat and muscular coat, but these demands a spatial description at two different sites. See here, first you need to get first the position of this or view of this image. It's a posterior view of this larynx, posterior view of the pharynx, and here this upper part you can get, it's a white part. So here in the upper part where the muscles, laryngeal muscles are deficient, that fibrous coat is thickened. So this requires a special demand that the fibrous coat basically is thin between deep to the muscle, but where this upper part where the muscle is deficient between the upper border of the superior constrictor and this cranial base, the fibrous coat is especially thickened. And second point, in the posterior median aspect, one more thickening is, elongated thickening is there, that is known as the median raphe, posterior median raphe. And this also is important because this posterior median raphe, which is the nothing but this fibrous cord that provides insertion to these constrictors of the pharynx, pharyngeal constrictors. Okay, so this is about this fibrous coat. Now let's go for this one more coat, that is a muscular coat. That is the outermost coat. Once again, I am telling that we are discussing at this moment, the point of discussion is the structure of the pharynx. What is the basic layers of the pharynx? So basically there are three layers. Innermost is the mucous coat that is lined by the epithelium, and the epithelium is different at the different part. In the nasopharynx, it's a ciliated columnar epithelium, while in the oropharynx as well as in the laryngopharynx, basically it's a stratified squamous. Outside this mucous coat, there is a fibrous coat, and what I told, it's known as the pharyngobasilar fascia, and this fibrous coat is thin, but that demands a spatial description at two sides. The first side that I shown above in the uppermost part where the muscular coat is not there. So at this side the fibrous coat is thickened. And second one is the posterior median aspect, that is known as the pharyngeal raphe. Here also that is thickened, and this provides insertion to these pharyngeal constrictors. Now come to the third coat, muscular coat. Now pharyngeal musculature, I have enlisted the members of this group, pharyngeal musculature group. Basically 6 muscles are there on each side. So 6 paired muscles are there, and I have enlisted the name of those muscles. 3 constrictors are there, superior, middle and inferior constrictors, and beside these by and large vertically placed muscles, they are the stylopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. So these 6 muscles are there. Now first we will discuss about these pharyngeal constrictors. So here in this image you can get 3 different muscles that is shown by the different colors. The lowermost muscle is the inferior constrictor, then comes the middle, and the uppermost, which is green color, that is the superior constrictor muscles. Now see the inferior constrictor muscles. Now you can get that it's a lateral view. Keep in mind what this figure shows, that is a lateral view. So this inferior constrictor muscle here, that gets origin from this thyroid and cricoid cartilage. Now we will discuss about this origin and insertion, basic aspect of the origin and insertion of all these constrictors. So this inferior constrictor having a origin from this thyroid and cricoid cartilage. Now after this origin, the fiber that passes, that ascends laterally, ascends medially. Recalling that ascends medially, and these upper fibers that overlaps the middle constrictor. Actually this lower part of the middle constrictor is overlapped by this inferior constrictor. Now this inferior constrictor having a 2 different part, functionally different part, the part which arises from the cricoid cartilage, the lower part, that is known as the cricopharyngeal part, and the part which arises from the thyroid cartilage, that is known as the thyropharyngeal part. Actually, both these parts, structurally as well as the functionally differs. This thyropharyngeal part that acts as a propulsive part, while that of the cricopharyngeal part that acts as a pincher, that is a pinching part of this inferior constrictor. That we will discuss in the deglutition. Now, as far as the insertion concerns, recalling that all these pharyngeal constrictors having the same insertion, that is in the posterior median raphe. Now, next one is the middle constrictor. Now, this orange colored structure, that is a middle constrictor muscle. Here you can get one more view, lateral view. This is the inferior constrictor muscles. Having the origin, this is a thyropharyngeal part, this one is the cricopharyngeal part. Now, this one is the middle constrictor muscle. So, one can get the origin of this middle constrictor muscle that arises from this lower part of the stylohyoid ligament. You can get the ligament is extended from this styloid process to this inferior horn of this hyoid bone. That is a stylohyoid ligament. So, it's a lower part of the stylohyoid ligament along with the inferior horn, small horn, along with this greater horn of this hyoid bone. All together that give rise to these middle constrictor muscles. It's somewhat fan shaped muscle. So at the origin somewhat narrower, but as it passes backward, that gets enlarged or that expands. The upper fibers passes upward, that overlaps the superior constrictor, and the lower fibers passes downward, and that is hidden by the inferior constrictor. Okay. Now, this is the posterior view. Posterior view of these constrictors. So here you can get the posterior median raphe, providing insertion to all the constrictors. This one is the middle inferior constrictor. This is the middle constrictor. And lastly, the superior constrictor muscle. Here in the upper part it's a superior constrictor. So you can get somewhat quadrilateral muscle having an origin from this pterygohumerus, pterygomandibular raphe, and the inner aspect of this mandibular body. And from this origin, the fibers passes backward and medially, and ultimately the insertion is the same, that is a posterior median raphe. So this is about the pharyngeal constrictors. Origin as well as the insertion. Insertion is common for all the pharyngeal constrictors, that is a posterior median raphe. Origin differs. Now at this moment, I would like to tell you the important point, that is the structure passing through the gaps between the constrictors. Now let me show you which are the gaps of what I am telling you. Here you can get, this is the superior constrictor and this one is the middle constrictor. A gap is there between these two. In the same way, between the middle and inferior gap is there. Then deep through this inferior constrictor, also the certain structure passes, and above the superior constrictor a gap is there. That also transmits certain structures. So which are the structures passing above the superior constrictor, between the superior middle constrictor, between the middle and inferior, and below the inferior? So that I am going to tell you, and I have enumerated the list. The structure passes above the upper border of the superior constrictor muscle. That is the auditory tube and the levator veli palatini muscle. Auditory tube and levator veli palatini muscle. Between the superior and middle constrictor, that is the stylopharyngeus muscle along with its nerve supply, that is a glossopharyngeal nerve. Between the middle and inferior, it's an internal laryngeal nerve along with the superior laryngeal vessels. And below the inferior constrictor, it's a recurrent laryngeal nerve with the inferior laryngeal vessels. So these are the structures that passes between the gaps, that passes through the gaps between the constrictors. So these were all about these constrictor muscles. Now let's go for these certain vertical muscles. Let's have one more. Let's have a list for one more time. These three are the constrictors, and these three are the vertical muscles. They are the stylopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus, and palatopharyngeus. Now, as the name indicates, basically the origin of these three muscles having that is indicated in the name of the muscle. Stylopharyngeus, that takes origin from the styloid process. Salpingopharyngeus, salping means a tube, so that's having the origin from this auditory tube. And the palatopharyngeus, that's having the origin from the palate, soft palate. So these three vertical muscles are there, and insertion for all these muscles is same. Just like that of this constrictor, the insertion is same. That is in the posterior median raphe. The insertion of these three also is same. What is the insertion? So some fibers of these muscles, they get lost within the wall of the pharynx, and the other fibers of this muscle, they are inserted in the posterior border of this thyroid lamina. Posterior border of the lamina of thyroid cartilage. Now let me show the figure. Once again, you need to understand the view of this figure. Actually, you are viewing the larynx. So the posterior wall of the pharynx is open by making the incision. Posterior wall of the pharynx is open by making incision. So here you can get one muscle. So this is the inner aspect of the pharynx. You need to get this image that this one is the inner aspect of this pharynx. So here this green colored muscle that extends from this tube, that is a auditory tube, and that passes downward, that is a salpingopharyngeus muscle. Now this diverging muscle, now this one is the soft palate. So the muscles diverging from the soft palate, that is a palatopharyngeus muscle. So this salpingopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus muscle one can get. And a third one is the stylopharyngeus muscle. Now these stylopharyngeus muscles, in this image you can see, that arises from the styloid process and that passes towards the wall of the pharynx. So these three pharyngeus muscle, that is a salpingopharyngeus, stylopharyngeus, and palatopharyngeus, having a different origin, and that is indicated in the name of those muscle, but the insertion is same. What I explained, that is few of the fibers of this muscle, they lost in the wall of this pharynx, and some other fibers, they having a insertion over the posterior border of the lamina of thyroid cartilage. So this is all about the pharyngeal musculature. Let's have a quick recap about the structure of the pharynx, what we have discussed. Basically, the pharyngeal structure consists of the pharynx consists of a three lamina, three tunics. The innermost tunic is the mucosa. Then comes the fibrous tunic, that is known as the pharyngobasilar fascia, and the outermost tunic or the outermost layer is the muscular tunic, and that is made up of the pharyngeal musculature, having 6 muscles on each side. The 6 paired muscles are there. Out of these 6, 3 constrictors are there, superior, middle and inferior, and 3 vertical muscles are there, that is a salpingopharyngeus, stylopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. Now, let's proceed for the nerve supply. So, motor nerve supply to the pharynx. So, remember, all the muscles of the pharynx are innervated by this cranial part of the accessory nerve. All the muscles of the pharynx are innervated by the cranial part of the accessory nerve. No doubt the fibers of these cranial part of the accessory nerve travels via the vagus nerve, but basically the fibers are from the cranial part of the accessory nerve. But one exception is there, that is a stylopharyngeus muscle. And this stylopharyngeus muscle is innervated by this glossopharyngeal nerve. So one can tell all the musculature of the pharynx are innervated by the cranial accessory nerve, except that of this stylopharyngeus, which is innervated by this glossopharyngeal nerve. Now, as far as the sensory supply to the pharyngeal mucosa concerned, the sensory aspect or the sensory supply derives from the different sources. The nasal part of the pharynx receives the sensory branches from this pterygopalatine ganglion. It's a pharyngeal branch of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Actually, ultimately, functionally, it's a branch of the maxillary nerve, but it comes through the pterygopalatine ganglion. So that innervates the sensory aspect to this nasopharynx. Now, pharyngeal branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve that provides sensory aspect to this oropharynx, and internal laryngeal nerve provides sensory aspect to this laryngopharynx. So this is all about this nerve supply of the pharynx. Now, what about the arterial supply? Basically, pharynx is supplied by a number of arteries, and these arteries are direct branch of the external carotid artery or sub-branch of the branch of external carotid artery. See the upper two arteries, that is a ascending pharyngeal artery and lingual artery. What I have enumerated, they are the directly branched from this external carotid artery. And the next one, that is ascending palatine and the tonsillar. These are the branches of the facial artery, but ultimately the facial itself is a branch from the external carotid. And the last one, the greater palatine and pharyngeal artery, they are the branches from the maxillary, which ultimately from the external carotid. So basic source is the external carotid artery. So this is about this arterial supply. As far as venous drainage concerned, venous blood from the pharynx is drained into the internal jugular vein. Actually, venous blood drains into the pharyngeal venous plexus, which surrounds this pharynx, and ultimately this venous plexus drain into the internal jugular vein. The lymphatics from the pharynx drain into the deep cervical lymph nodes. That is a deep cervical lymph nodes. So, this was about this nerve supply, arterial supply and venous drainage as well as the lymphatic drainage of the pharynx. Let's have a quick recap about this neurovascular bundle once more. As far as nerve supply concerned, all the muscles of pharynx are innervated by the cranial part of the accessory nerve, with one exception, that is a stylopharyngeus muscle that is supplied by this glossopharyngeal nerve. Sensory supply, so different part of the pharynx receives the sensory nerves from the different sources. The nasopharynx is innervated or the supply by this pharyngeal branch of this pterygopalatine ganglion. The oropharynx receives the sensory supply from this pharyngeal branch of this glossopharyngeal nerve, and the laryngopharynx is supplied by the internal laryngeal nerve. Now, arterial supply. So, ascending pharyngeal and lingual arteries, these are the branches of this external carotid that directly nourish the pharynx, and the branches of the facial artery, ascending palatine and tonsillar, and the branches of the maxillary artery, that is a greater palatine and pharyngeal branches, they also nourish the pharynx. As far as the venous drainage concerned, venous blood from the pharynx is drained by this pharyngeal venous plexus, and ultimately this plexus drains into the internal jugular vein, and the lymphatics drain into the deep cervical lymph nodes. So this is all about the pharynx. Now let's have a discussion about this process that is a deglutition, or this process of swallowing, that is known as the deglutition. Now this deglutition is the process of swallowing that starts when the food is put in the oral cavity, and that ends when the food that passes the pharynx and enters within the esophagus. Now this process of the deglutition having the different stages according to where the food bolus is located, having a different stage. first stage, second stage and third stage. Now, in the first stage, the bolus which is put in the anterior part of the oral cavity, that crosses the whole oral cavity and enters within the oropharynx. That is our first stage. When the bolus reaches the oropharynx, the first stage ends. Now, and second stage charge. Now, in the second stage, from the oropharynx, the bolus reaches to the lower part of the laryngopharynx. That is the second stage. And when the bolus clears this pharyngoesophageal junction from the lower part of this laryngopharynx and enters within the esophagus, that the third stage completes. Now, within the first stage, certain processes takes place. First, when the bolus is put in the anterior part of the tongue gets raised. So, this raising of the tongue push the bolus into the posterior part of this oral cavity, towards the posterior part of the oral cavity. Now, this raising of the tongue is done by these certain intrinsic muscles of the tongue, intrinsic lingual musculature. Now, second thing that happens, that the soft palate depress. So, depression of the soft palate helps in the formation of the bolus. And third thing, hyoid bone is elevated. So, with the elevation of the hyoid bone, the food or the bolus which is located in the posterior part of the pharynx now crosses the oropharyngeal isthmus and enters within the oropharynx. So, once the bolus enters within the oropharynx, now the second stage starts. Now, as we have discussed in the anatomical aspect of this oropharynx, that the oropharynx, it communicates with the nasopharynx in the upper part and in the lower part, that is going to communicate with the laryngeal cavity also. So, when the food is within the oropharynx, these two communication, that is the laryngeal inlet as well as the communication with the nasopharynx, that is a nasopharyngeal part, here. Now, in the second state, let me show you. Here the bolus is here in the oropharynx. Now, this oropharynx directly communicates with this nasopharynx here, and lower down the food may pass through this larynx also. So, here in this stage, these two communication must be closed for the prevention of this food entering into this nasopharynx as well as entering into the laryngeal cavity. Now, how this communication gets closed? So, here, this is the pharyngeal isthmus, and I told you the boundary of this pharyngeal isthmus, that it is bounded by this ridge of Pasevant as well as the free margin of this soft palate. Now, this soft palate gets elevated and ridge of the Pasevant gets constricted because of this contraction of the underlying palatopharyngeal muscles. Palatopharyngeal sphincter. So, this pharyngeal isthmus gets closed, and here the laryngeal opening also gets closed. Now, how this laryngeal opening gets closed? By the contraction of the aryepiglottic muscle. So, this aryepiglottic muscle, when gets contracted, the aryepiglottic fold approximates and the laryngeal opening gets closed. So, one can get that this provision has been made for preventing the entry of the food into the nasopharynx and into the laryngeal cavity. Okay, so the food having only one path, that has to pass to the laryngopharynx, because this communication is closed and this communication is closed. Now, later on, under the influence of this gravitation, when the person is upright or sitting in sitting position, and under the influence of this contraction of this constrictor, the food passes gradually downwards and reaches to this part, that is the lower part of the laryngopharynx. So, here the further propulsion of the food gets stopped because of the contraction of this cricopharyngeal or the sphinctering part of this infraconstrictor muscle. So that ends the second stage. So in the second stage, the food that has entered within this oropharynx, that has come to this lower part of the laryngopharynx. And at that time, the third stage starts. So in the third stage, what happens? This cricopharyngeal sphincter, that is the sphinctering part of this infraconstrictor muscle, gets relaxed. So that gets open, and the thyropharyngeal part of this infraconstrictor gets contracted. So ultimately, the sphincter is open, and because of the contraction of this thyropharyngeal part, the food passes downward within the esophagus. So that ends the third part also, or the third stage also. So this is about the process of the deglutition, 3 stages of the deglutition. Lastly, one applied aspect I would like to tell you, that in the nasopharynx, now here you can get that this one is the nasopharynx. Okay, and I told about the wall of the nasopharynx, that the upper wall as well as the posterior wall is a continuous slope, and that is formed by this skull base. And here, just deep to the mucosa, there is a collection of the lymphoids that is known as the nasopharyngeal isthmus, that is known as the nasopharyngeal tonsil. Now, sometimes this infection and the inflammation of this nasopharyngeal tonsil, because of this inflammation, this tonsil gets enlarged or the hypertrophied. And when this hypertrophied nasopharyngeal tonsil can obstruct the air passage. Here in this figure you can get that is going to obstruct the air passage. So when this hypertrophied nasopharyngeal tonsil starts producing symptoms because of the obstruction of the air passage, that is known as the adenoid. And this adenoid having a different clinical features over the face. And these features, I am not going to discuss about these features that you will study in the ENT. But right now, what you need to understand, what you need to remember, that this nasopharyngeal tonsil, which is located in the nasopharynx, sometimes gets enlarged. And that enlargement, that is going to obstruct the air passage. And this obstruction ultimately leads to a complication. And this, because of this, at that time, this hypertrophied tonsil is known as the adenoid. So this is one applied. The other applied about this pyriform fossa that I already told, that the pyriform fossa is the site where the foreign body can lodge, and when the instrument is applied to remove that foreign body, that instrument may lead to the damage to this internal laryngeal nerve. And what the complication that I told, it's a hemianesthesia of this supraglottic part of the laryngeal mucosa. Okay, so that's all.